As many of you comic enthusiasts are fully aware, Spider-Man hasn't had many long-term sidekicks, but had plenty of partners and allies with similar powers, abilities and backgrounds who fight crime with similar names. Many of his female companions have used the name Spider-Woman at different points of time. Some of them were either his fans, some were his daughters, and in a few exceptional cases, some were created in a lab. Spider-Woman first took the Marvel Universe by storm in 1977, and ever since then, we've seen the character go through many iterations. From the OG Jessica Drew to more recent and diverse incarnations, Spider-Woman has had quite a dynamic presence through the decades. Each different version of Spider-Woman brought in a unique flair to the mantle, with their eccentric origin story, an iconic set of powers, and a rich personal journey to spice up Spider-Woman's adventures. But every person who took up the mantle over the years have done it often simultaneously for drastically different reasons. Mind you, this list is in no particular order, and it's going to be fast-paced as we try to cover some of the story arcs. So, without wasting another moment, let's check out every Spider-Woman in the Marvel Universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Charlotte Witter, Earth-616. While most versions of Spider-Woman are heroes in the comics, there was one evil variant with a unique connection to another Spider-Man character. I'm talking about Charlotte Witter, who's the granddaughter of the first Madame and the fourth woman to take up the mantle. Witter was a batshit crazy fashion designer with untapped psionic potential and an unhealthy obsession of becoming powerful. Unfortunately, she was first kidnapped by Dr. Octopus, who conducted some brain-wrecking experiments on her after he discovered her lineage and latent psychic powers. He fused her with spider DNA to unlock her powers and transform her into his own evil, vampiric, and monstrous Spider-Woman. Post her transformation, Charlotte could create psionic spider legs from her back and went on to drain out every Spider-Woman to absorb their powers till she could be the only one left. She went on to rob Jessica Drew, Julia Carpenter, and Mattie Franklin of their powers in an attempt to be strong enough to defeat Spider-Man. However, things sort of went south for her when Mattie Franklin managed to reabsorb all the stolen powers from Witter. But Charlotte again tried to use her telepathy to control Spider-Man, but was once again defeated by Mattie Franklin, who was disguised as Spider-Woman. Ultimately, Mattie absorbed all the stolen powers from Charlotte and redistributed them amongst their rightful owners. Sadly, it left Witter's psyche heavily affected as she slipped into a coma, withering away alone. Claire Parker, Earth-19529. In an alternate universe, Spider-Man was remotely happy because in this reality, Peter Parker was married to Mary Jane. Together, they had Claire and a twin brother Benji, who were born while their father was off participating in the Secret Wars as Spider-Man. But shortly after Peter returned, Mary Jane left him as she simply couldn't handle Peter's double life as Spider-Man, especially after a traumatic incident involving an alien symbiote and a crazed Kraven the Hunter. She took both the children along with her as she left. Claire and Benji grew up with their mother near Portland, Oregon, and it's quite unclear how much Peter was involved in their lives while they were growing up. When they turned 11 in 1995, they warmly welcomed him back into their lives. Now, in 2006, a 22-year-old Claire was living with her parents after graduating from college, still rethinking about accepting a scholarship to Stanford. When her Uncle Ben was murdered by Moreland, Claire urged her father to take action. So, Peter decided to go to New York to clear his name, deal with Parker Industries, and hopefully lure Moreland away from his family. Unfortunately, while Peter was away, Moreland attacked the Parker household, intending to eat Claire and Benji as a snack while waiting to find their father. As Moreland tried to feed on Claire, she instinctively swiped at him right across his face while drawing blood in the process. The family then fled into the woods. Soon Benji realized that Moreland was vulnerable while feeding, so he decided to use himself as bait to offer Claire the chance to strike Moreland with a splintered log and impale him. Eventually, Claire became a hero in her own right, joining all the next generation of heroes who survived the Civil War and Doom's rise to power. Although some people believe that her version is a mix of Mayday Parker, who is the Peter Parker and Mary Jane's daughter from Earth-982, along with Spider-Woman of the Ultimate Universe, as Claire's costume is virtually identical to hers. Gwendolyn Stacy, Earth-65b. As one of the newest additions to the Spider-Women lineup, Gwendolyn Stacy has become as popular, if not more so, than Jessica Drew. Created by Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez, Spider-Gwen was first introduced in 2014 during the Spider-Verse comic book event as a variant of the Gwen Stacy, who goes on to become Peter Parker's famously doomed love interest from Earth-65. But after Gwen was bitten by a radioactive spider, just like Peter in the main universe, fans began calling her Spider-Gwen. Although within her own universe she's known as Spider-Woman, Gwen's often seen using the codename Ghost Spider. Her story begins with Peter Parker of Earth-65, who began utilizing his scientific skills to experiment on himself after feeling powerless from a lifetime of being bullied. So, after Parker turned himself into a version of the supervillain known as the Lizard, Spider-Gwen goes on tailing after the chaos he leaves at his wake. During their final battle, Gwen didn't have a single clue that the Lizard was indeed her friend Peter, and is forced to kill him to protect the civilians. She finds out who the Lizard is only as Peter dies and reverts to his human form. Now, Gwen's father, Police Captain George Stacy, Stacy starts hunting after Spider-Woman, believing her to be a murderer. But after Gwen reveals her identity to him, they begin to mend their relationship. As most of the hardcore enthusiasts might be aware, Spider-Gwen's popularity has led to several comic book series that went on to explore the world of Earth-65. She also often appears in crossover stories involving the multiverse and other heroes. These storylines have helped to build close relationships with other Spider-Man-related characters, especially Jessica Drew, who goes on to become a mentor to her. Oh, and Gwen was also briefly romantically involved with Miles Morales. Spider-Gwen has also appeared in various animated projects, and the Spider-Verse films, where Hailee Steinfeld voices her character, is really one of her most notable rodeos. After playing a supporting role in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Gwen became a co-lead in Across the Spider-Verse, alongside Miles. The film stayed true to Gwen's comic book origins, covering Peter's death, which resulted in the inevitable tension with her father, George. At the beginning of Across the Spider-Verse, we see Gwen join the Spider Society, which sets her on a slightly different path from a comic book counterpart. But this is a good change, as it allowed for her mentor-student relationship with Jess to be effortlessly adapted into the film, alongside the chance of a relationship with Miles to be explored. At the end of the film, we see a rift being driven between Gwen and Jess after Gwen defied her orders due to her feelings for Miles. This led Miguel to expel her from the Spider Society, and even if she was reluctant, Jess supported this decision. Gwen then goes on to form her own team of heroes to rescue Miles, who was stranded in the wrong universe. This impulse-driven decision potentially set up further conflict between her and Jess in the upcoming third film, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. The commercial success and critical acclaim of the Spider-Verse films made Spider-Gwen even more popular. So, many fans are hoping that either Hailee Steinfeld or Emma Stone, who played a non-powered Gwen in the Amazing Spider-Man films, will get the chance to bring the character to live action. Gwendolyn Stacy, Earth-TRN-888. As another version of Spider-Woman, Gwen Stacy was known as Ghost Spider in Earth-TRN-888 too. She's one of the main characters in the TV series Marvel's Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which is really just an animated show for kids. As the only female member of Team Spidey, Gwen used the alias Ghost Spider to keep her identity secret. Alongside her friends Spidey and Spin, she helped defend New York from various villains in many different quests. Gwendolyn Stacy, Earth-65. So, Earth-65's Gwen more or less has the same origin story as the Spider-Gwen from Earth-65b. In this universe, during a school field trip, Gwen Stacy was bitten by a radioactive spider which gave her spider powers, and after creating her own costume, she became the Spider-Woman of her universe. As Spider-Woman, she clashed with the Lizard, who of course turned out to be a mutated Peter Parker. In this universe, Peter had transformed himself into the monster in an attempt to become special like Gwen, but during their battle, Peter was severely injured and died. Believing she was responsible, the police and her father, the head of the NYPD, wanted Spider-Woman for the murder of Peter Parker. Following this, Gwen was one of the first Spider people contacted by Spider UK to join his Spider army to fight against the Inheritors during their hunt for Spider people. She was then sent to Earth 21205 to recruit a Peter Parker who had basically lost his mind after Gwen's death and become the Green Goblin of his reality. Unfortunately, that version of Peter was killed by Werner and her hounds. Gwen was then teleported away, but she hated the fact that she failed to save yet another Peter Parker. Gwen also appeared in the finale of Spider-Verse, where she fought against the Inheritors and played a huge part in defeating them. After returning to her reality, Gwen tried to win over public opinion by capturing a new villain named Vulture. However, when the media linked Spider-Woman and Vulture together, Gwen set out to prove them wrong. After she found Vulture, they started fighting, and as Vulture tried to fly away, Gwen caught him with her webs, but he cut them with his wings, causing her to fall a great distance. But Vulture still had trust issues and didn't believe that Spider-Woman was dead, so he flew to attack George Stacy, thinking he had a connection to her as she'd saved him from Alexei Sistovich before. When the Vulture gassed the area to find out more, Gwen used the gas as cover to change into her Spider-Woman costume and confront him. During the fight, Captain Stacy shot Vulture in the shoulder, forcing him to retreat. Gwen then chased after him, and despite being affected by the gas, she managed to take down Vulture. She literally webbed him to a police car in an attempt to earn the NYPD's trust. In the Secret Wars event, after the destruction of her universe, an amnesiac Gwen found herself on Earth 15513, using the alias Ms. Woodley and working at Oscorp. Here, she teamed up with Peter Parker from Earth 831, Anya Corazon from Earth 616, William Braddock from Earth 833, Pavitra Prabhakar from Earth 50101, and Peter Parker from Earth 90214. Together, they managed to overthrow Mayor Norman Osborn and prevent him from taking control of the Web of Life and Destiny. Once the multiverse was restored, Gwen became a part-time member of the Web Warriors, helping to protect all the dimensions that had lost their spider totems to the Inheritors. Gwendolyn Stacy, Earth-TRN-457. Gwendolyn Gwen Stacy from Earth-TRN-457 is an alternate version of Gwen Stacy who becomes a superheroine and takes on the mantle of a web slinger after Miles Morales becomes stranded in Earth-12041. I guess all the Spider-Women have one thing in common. All of them want to become powerful, but if they want to use it for good or not is entirely up to debate. On the other hand, in this reality, Gwen Stacy was the daughter of NYPD Captain George Stacy. She was also friends with Peter Parker, who was the Spider-Man in her world. After Peter died fighting the Green Goblin, a new Spider-Man man named Miles Morales took up the mantle. After feeling guilty for not helping Peter, despite having newly acquired powers, Miles decided to become his successor. Gwen discovered Miles' secret identity through her own investigation, and when Miles disappeared, she felt compelled to step up. Now that Peter was no longer around, she believed that the world still needed a hero with spider-like abilities, so she took on the role of Spider-Woman to continue fighting for justice. Without any inherent spider powers or some irradiated spider to bite her, Gwen crafted her own tech-based abilities inspired by her father's robot police program. These included web shooters, a digital spider sense, and gloves and boots that were equipped with magnetic grips for scaling walls. To aid in her missions, she turned to Peter's Aunt May for assistance. May operated out of their hideout, known as the Spider's Nest, which was located in the sewers where she'd relocated her furniture. From her computer setup, May had a bird's-eye view of the entire city that allowed her to guide Gwen effectively during all her missions. Jessica Drew, AI, Earth-14831. Like I've mentioned, not all Spider-Women were bitten by a radioactive spider. Some were like Jessica Drew from Earth-14831, who was actually an artificial intelligence created by All-Father Ultron. She was designed to fulfill the role of the original Spider-Woman on Ultron's team of robotic Avengers. So, in the year 2420, after Ultron defeated the original Avengers and conquered humanity centuries earlier, he formed his own team of Avengers. This team included an artificial intelligence modeled after Jessica Drew, the original Spider-Woman. At some point after Spider-Woman was created, she and her fellow Avengers were summoned to defend their master's regime. Inevitably, they clashed against a group of Avengers who were gathered from different points in history and brought to the year 2420 by their master's nemesis, Dr. Doom. The goal was to help Doom in overthrowing the tyrannical robot regime. So, Spider-Woman, along with her teammates Vision, Captain America, and Hawkeye, faced off against Iron Man from the early 1980s and the Vision from the 21st century. These Avengers from the past invaded Avengers Tower to shut down Ultron's drone factories. Unfortunately, this battle turned out to be this AI Spider-Woman's final fight, as she met her end when the Vision from the 21st century fatally injured her while she attempted to attack Iron Man. Jessica Drew, Clone, Earth-61610. In one of the most confusing comic arcs, Jessica Drew was a female clone of Peter Parker and was known as the Black Widow in Earth-61610. In this reality, both versions of Spider-Woman from Earth-616 and Earth-1610 coexisted together. Jessica was among the many heroes who joined a battle between two groups, one from the universe of Earth-616 and the other from a reality similar to the Ultimate Universe. But at the end, it was Miles Morales who revealed the truth about their realities, ultimately prompting the two groups to unite against Doom. Unfortunately, they were all ultimately erased from existence, and this cloned version of Jessica Drew was never seen again. Jessica Drew, Earth-13159. In Earth-13159, Jessica Drew was a member of the Avengers crew as Spider-Woman. Even if she was part of the most famous superhero team, the situation wasn't exactly too great. She, alongside many other superhumans, were being brutally hunted down by the United States military. The military had deployed a wide range of machine men robots who were basically a cybernetically enhanced group of soldiers, quite like the Sentinels. These robotic soldiers were being led by General Reginald 14 from the Earth-616 reality through a portal that the Man-Thing had created. But later, when the Man-Thing finally closed the portal, he trapped the members of Project Echelon in the alternate reality. As the portal shut, X-51 and Tesla watched as General 14 led Project Echelon against that reality's Avengers. In the aftermath, X-51 realized that to prevent an apocalyptic future where Project Echelon would destroy the planet, they created a divergent reality. Reginald was furious that his soldiers were stranded in the doomed world, but the Red She-Hulk and the rest of the heroes were indifferent. They'd saved the world and planned to enjoy the second chance they'd been given. Jessica is a minor character here who mostly helps the team defeat the bad guys and prevent world annihilation. You know, the usual. Jessica Drew, Earth-19919. If you've systematically read comics on the same character being set in different realities, you'll find how most famous heroes seem to share the same origin story as their Prime Earth counterpart, and it was the same case for the Jessica Drew of this reality. During an assault on Spider-Queen, most of the Resistance's superheroes were captured, leaving only Jessica and Agent Venom to escape. Soon, Venom's mole, Werewolf by Night, revealed a potential cure at Horizon Labs and shared his secret plan with Jessica, explaining that he and the Vision had been collecting items that could overwrite the spider DNA, which could free the captured heroes from the Queen's control. The trio then deliberately walked into a trap set by the spider-powered heroes, who aimed to transform them into different monsters. They used the Man-Wolf's gemstone to turn King Spider into a werewolf, Morbius' serum to transform Captain Marvel into a vampire, and the Lizard serum to change Spider-Hulk into a lizard-like creature. After anticipating Carol's transformation into a vampire, Jessica had organized blood donations from the Resistance members to ensure Carol wouldn't be overwhelmed by bloodlust. Later, Jess joined the assault on the Queen's castle, reluctantly arguing that killing Anna was the only way to free Manhattan. She witnessed Flash and his symbiote sacrifice themselves to position the Spider-Queen for her demise at the hands of Stegron and his dinosaurs. In the days days that followed, Jess helped rebuild Avengers Tower and was also there when Dino Thor, the rep for the Thor Corps from the Valley of Flame, arrived on behalf of God Emperor Doom to select a new Baron of Spider Island. Jess and the reformed Avengers all voted for Spider-Man as the new Baron of Spider Island. Jessica Drew, Earth-20051. So this reality was covered in Marvel Adventures Iron Man issue number 10, where Tony Stark went on to hire the world's greatest private investigator, Jessica Drew, in order to help him find his long-lost father. However, when the chameleon infiltrates Stark International while being disguised as Tony's dad, Iron Man will need the help of Jessica's alter ego, who is the spectacular Spider-Woman of the 251 reality. This Spider-Woman has a very different origin compared to her Earth-616 counterpart. Instead of being just a normal skin and bones human, this Spider-Woman was made when the High Evolutionary experimented on a spider by genetically mutating it into a human being so he could infiltrate into the human world and blend in. Jessica Drew, Earth-2149. Not much is known about this Jessica Drew's life as Spider-Woman before the zombie plague hit Earth-2149, but her origin story is assumed to be similar to the Earth-616 counterpart. It's likely that Jessica was called by Nick Fury to join the resistance on the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, and she went on to respond to the call, ultimately joining the fight against the plague. With the diverse group of superpowered people gathered on the helicarrier, Nick Fury explained the gravity of the situation, emphasizing that despite all their different backgrounds and past histories, they were all allies in this fight, battling the same enemy. It's likely that Jessica was among those sent back to the surface to battle the zombies. Although the mission didn't quite go well, as Spider-Woman was later seen among the zombie horde in a zombie-fied state. While her ultimate fate is unclear, it can surely be presumed that she was incinerated when the power cosmic zombies tested their new abilities. Jessica Drew, Earth-5631. So Jessica Drew's history, up until her first appearance in this reality, is possibly again the same as her Earth-616 version. I know it's no news to you at this point, but this Spider-Woman had a different kind of adventure. Kang the Conqueror launched an attack on New York City with the help of AIM and their stolen replicas of a new Iron Man armor model. Jessica fought alongside the other Avengers to fend off Kang's forces. During the battle, Katie Power kept wondering if Jessica might be Spider-Man's sister or wife, as they were both spider-themed superheroes, but Jessica denied being both. Eventually, Kang used a chronal disruption field to trap Jessica in a stasis, which of course defeated her. But luckily, she was saved from this unfortunate predicament when Power Pack, after a journey to an alternate future, managed to defeat Kang and free Jessica. Later, she's seen again among the many superheroes responding to the Hulk's rampage. Jessica Drew, Earth-57780. So in this world, Jessica Drew's father, Jonathan Drew, was a scientist who specialized in working with animals. When Jessica was a child, she had an accident that left her in a catatonic state. To keep her alive, Jonathan used spider radiation until he could find a cure for her and use it on her as an adult. Eventually, this treatment led to Jessica becoming Spider-Woman. Now, when Peter and Aunt May are on vacation in London, they see a news broadcast accusing Spider-Woman of being a thief. After Spidey manages to capture her, she explains that it was Dr. Octopus who framed her. So together, they track him down to Big Ben, but he somehow escapes. Meanwhile, Captain Britain is stopping Dr. Octopus from robbing a bank when Spidey arrives. Sadly, he mistakes Spidey for an accomplice and knocks him out. Doc Octopus then kidnaps Aunt May, causing Spidey and Captain Britain to team up. They chase him down to Wimbledon, where they finally bring him to justice and clear Spider-Woman's name. Jessica Drew, Earth-616. I'm sure most of you know the story of this Spider-Woman, given it's the most well-known version of the character. In the Prime Earth, Jessica Drew was the daughter of American anthropologist Jonathan Drew and his British wife Miriam. When Jessica was under 2 years old, her family moved to the small Balkan nation of Transia. Her father, along with geneticist Herbert Edgar Wyndham, aka High Evolutionary, had bought land on Wundagore Mountain to build a scientific research center and later discovered uranium on the property. This made them wealthy and allowed them to build a state-of-the-art scientific citadel. But 5 years later, Jessica became gravely ill from being exposed to the radioactive uranium. To save her, Jonathan injected her with an experimental serum made from irradiated spider's blood, believing that spiders had greater immunity to radiation than humans. When Jessica didn't respond to the treatment right away, Wyndham placed her in the genetic accelerator he'd designed for further treatment. Jess was kept in stasis for decades, with the chamber slowing her aging until the treatments were finally completed in recent years. During this time, her mother Miriam waited for her to return, but as she aged, Wyndham had to create a clone of Miriam to continue watching over Jess. Now a fully grown woman with limited life experience, Jessica felt out of place among the new men of Wundagore, as they clearly sensed her hybrid nature, and her human form made them uncomfortable. So, Jessica left the Citadel of Science and started working as a barmaid in a nearby village. It was there that she had her first romance, which tragically ended in a terrible accident when a prank gone wrong caused her to accidentally unleash a bioelectric blast that killed her boyfriend. After being falsely accused of witchcraft and murder, Jessica fled from an angry mob and fell into the hands of Otto Vermis, who was a wealthy leader in Hydra. He offered Jessica a safe place and trained her extensively in espionage, martial arts, and lethal techniques. Jessica Jessica, still reeling from the loss of her boyfriend, lost all memory of her past life upon joining Hydra. Under the influence of Mentalo's powers, she believed Hydra was fighting against corporate control. However, deep down, Jessica resisted Hydra's control, even going against their norms by making her costume red instead of green. During her first and only mission for Hydra, Jessica defied orders to assassinate S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury. This act of rebellion marked the beginning of her turning against Hydra. In a final confrontation, Jessica defeated Vermis in a battle where he revealed a false truth to her, that she was originally an artificially evolved spider, not a mutated human. Devastated by the revelations about her past, Jessica wandered aimlessly through Europe until a confrontation with Hydra in London changed her path. It was there that she crossed paths with the Thing and Mordred the Mystic, who used their magic to uncover Jessica's true origins. After this revelation, Jessica settled briefly in London. During her time in a rundown apartment in London, Jessica faced the harsh reality of trying to survive. In a moment of desperation, she attempted to steal food from a nearby convenience store but quickly regretted her actions and abandoned the food. Unfortunately, her presence didn't go unnoticed and she was spotted by Jerry Hunt, a persistent S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who forced Jessica to go into hiding to stop herself from getting noticed. Jessica dyed her hair black and created a secret identity for herself. Despite her reluctance to embrace a heroic role, she found herself rather drawn into action when she found Hunt and the local police engaged in a firefight with two thieves she'd encountered before. Jessica used her unique abilities, including her laser-resistant blood, to defeat the thieves and save Hunt's life. This is basically when she adopted the Spider-Woman mantle and began her countless adventures as a superhero. Jessica Drew, Earth-61610. I think we already covered a different version of the same Jessica Drew, who was known as Spider-Woman on Earth-61610 and lived in a reality where characters from Earth-616 and Earth-1610 coexisted in the same reality. She also played a very crucial role in a battle between heroes from these two parallel universes. However, with the guidance of Miles Morales, the groups discovered the truth about their intertwined realities and joined forces to confront Doom. However, their efforts ultimately led them to be wiped off from existence. Jessica Drew, Earth-8410. This story of the web-slinger was set in the distant future of 2020 AD, after Jessica Drew had retired from her role as Spider-Woman and transitioned into the position of director of S.H.I.E.L.D. As the director, she reached out to Arno Stark during the launch of his Spirit of Free Enterprise, which was the first civilian-produced heli-carrier. This reality was known as Earth-8410, so it might not be the direct future of the Prime Marvel comic universe. Interestingly, she sported an eye patch similar to Nick Fury during his tenure as director, which is a rather curious coincidence, isn't it? Jessica Drew, Earth-9997. In this reality as well, Jessica's history and early life resembles that of her Prime Earth counterpart. After humanity underwent a mutation, Jessica found herself targeted and infected by Hydra, a biological creation engineered by Norman Osborn. This sinister plot aimed to assert control all over America. As a result, Jessica's body fell under Hydra's control, while her soul ended up in the realm of the dead, where she faced an endless battle against other deceased superhumans. In time, Jessica joined forces with Mar-Vell's army to oppose death itself, fighting valiantly in this otherworldly conflict. Eventually, she found a new home in Paradise, where her soul continued to play a pivotal role. She also helped fellow citizens of Paradise in defending against a Kree invasion, demonstrating her unwavering commitment to protecting her newfound realm. Jessica Drew, Spider-Clone, Earth-1610. Spider-Clones were some of the most interesting story arcs in Spider-Woman's history. In this reality, when Dr. Octopus and Ben Reilly conducted experiments on Peter Parker's genes at Roxxon, they aimed to create their own army using his DNA. Through their efforts, they successfully produced 5 clones of Peter who were Spider-Woman, Scorpion, Kane, Tarantula, and one who believed he was Richard Parker. Spider-Woman, being a female clone of Peter, was the one to undergo the most significant genetic alterations. She was designated to be Jessica Drew, Agent Spider-Woman, and was being prepared to erase all her memories. During the chaos, the Carnage experiment broke free, inadvertently freeing the other clones as well. Kane, one of the clones, sought out Mary Jane, but Spider-Woman opposed any interaction with Peter Parker's life. Unfortunately, most of the Spider-Man clones proved unstable, leading to 3 of them escaping from captivity. So, Spider-Woman decided to track down the clones to prevent them from contacting the real Peter Parker or Mary Jane. As she approached her old house, her memories began flooding back, overwhelming her. After losing her mind for quite a while, she sought refuge in an abandoned warehouse, which once used to be her old hangout place. In the warehouse, Spider-Woman unexpectedly encountered the real Peter Parker, who was searching for Mary Jane and was startled to see her. Peter accused her of being involved in MJ's disappearance, leading to a tense confrontation. Despite Peter's determination, Spider-Woman's training and control gave her the upper hand, and she managed to subdue him before fleeing. Later that night, as Peter was being held by S.H.I.E.L.D., Spider-Woman came to his rescue and helped him escape. While they were searching for the other clones, Spider-Woman finally confides in Peter about her origins and how she was created. isolated. Their investigation then led them to an old Oscorp building where Spider-Woman believed they might come across Kane. But after going inside, they stumbled upon a chaotic scene where two of the clones were battling a monstrous creature revealed to be MJ, who was transformed by the Oz formula. While Peter steps in and manages to calm MJ down, helping her revert to her human form, their respite is short-lived as Nick Fury, the Fantastic Four, and Dr. Octopus arrive on the scene. Peter persuades Mr. Fantastic to take MJ away safely and attempt to find a cure for her condition. It was after the Fantastic Four departed that Peter and Spider-Woman found out that Dr. Octopus was the mastermind behind the clones. Peter then struck a deal with Nick Fury, where in exchange for Peter accompanying S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury agreed to leave Dr. Octopus along with them for 10 minutes. In those tense minutes, Tarantula attacked Dr. Octopus, who in turn unexpectedly revealed his ability to manipulate metal and fashion himself new arms. Tragically, Tarantula was fatally struck by a flying shard during the chaos. When Peter and Spider-Woman engaged Dr. Octopus in a fierce battle, it turned into a grueling fight, but they eventually triumphed over the villain. Despite the victory, Spider-Woman decided she didn't want to return to S.H.I.E.L.D. and escaped. She went back to their old haunt in the warehouse in Queens, where she waited for Peter to join her. When he arrived, they shared a heartfelt farewell after Peter granted her his blessing to continue using the Spider-Woman name. With a new sense of purpose, she decided to step away from New York for a while and embrace being Jessica Drew once again. Julia Carpenter, Earth-616. This one's a standalone plot with a lot of drama, and you might just love it if you give it a chance. So, in an alternate reality where Wolverine died on an X-Men mission in the 90s, it was a woman named Julia Carpenter who takes on the mantle of Spider-Woman. While she dons the classic Spider-Woman costume similar to her Earth-616 counterpart, her powers in this world are a lot different. Instead of psi webs, this version of Julia can fire psionic venom blasts and actually fly, which really are the same power set Jessica Drew has. In Earth-161, Spider-Woman becomes one of the Avengers who are all gathered to track down the X-Men and arrest them, as they were suspected of being involved in the deaths of former Avengers Tony Stark and Beast. Julia Carpenter, Earth-42777. As the Spider-Woman of Earth-42777, Julia Carpenter was a member of the Minions, who were a team of superheroes forced into servitude by an evil version of Tony Stark known as the Iron Monarch. You didn't think this would be a crazy collaboration with Gru and his Minions, did you? Sure, everything's a possibility in the Marvel Universe, but maybe this one's a stretch. Who knows? Anyways, Julia was one of the few powered beings to survive the Mutant Wars, only to be put to work by Tony Stark as one of his Minions. In Exiles Volume 1, Issue 25, Bolt surveys his people with a heavy heart, silently conveying his plan to his wife, Sue Storm, who reacts with horror after understanding his intentions. In the White House War Room, Stark outlines his plan to decimate the Inhuman stronghold. He manipulates the Weapon X team into taking the lead, knowing that they have the most to lose if the plan fails. As the Inhumans moved Atalan further out to sea, Stark's minions launched their attack, with Julia being one of them. A small group of Inhuman warriors, including Triton, Karnak, and Gorgon, leave the city to fend off Stark's forces. As Weapon X fights their way to the barrier, they lose half of Vision's body to Karnak, who dies in the process. With the barrier down, Bolt then takes his place above the city, giving one last look at his people. But it's only after Weapon X charges into the city do they realize how every Inhuman has taken their own life to save themselves from being captured. After realizing it's a trap, Gambit tries to warn his team to retreat, but they're teleported out before they can escape. As Stark's armies flood Atalan, Bolt screams, "Masada!" invoking the legend that inspired his strategy, and we see his powerful voice destroy the city of Atalan. Meanwhile, in the presidential gardens, Stark feels a profound sense of loss. His plans for galactic dominations are shattered now that the Inhumans' bodies have been vaporized by Black Bolt's scream. Unbeknownst to him, a small group of Inhumans has escaped, led by Sue Storm. Driven by her resolve, Sue confronts Stark and kills him before his guards can take her down. With her dying breath, she reveals Bolt's plan to Stark in order to ensure that he understands the extent of his failure. In the years and decades to come, Earth-42777 learns of Stark's atrocities as the Iron Monarch and the brave sacrifice of the Inhumans. Their story becomes a symbol of resistance and courage, inspiring the world after their unholy oppressor's downfall. Julia Carpenter, Earth-534834. The Iron Man, the animated series, surely had a lot of action, but it's also known for its crazy love triangle. The Spider-Woman of this world is Julia Carpenter, who's a member of both Force Works and the Avengers. In this animated show, she's seen to be in a relationship with Iron Man, though she often finds herself competing with her rival and teammate, the Scarlet Witch, for his affections. Despite their rivalry, Tony Stark doesn't seem to reciprocate either of their feelings, leaving their romantic competition pretty much unresolved. In the pilot episode of the animated series, a US submarine detects an unauthorized submarine, the Prometheus, and checks it out for any trouble. Meanwhile, Hypnotia hypnotizes a pair of Russian sailors on the Prometheus, planning to turn them into an army of slaves for the evil Mandarin in a year. Around the same time, Whirlwind and Dreadnought steal a microchip and hand it over to the Mandarin for his army of the living dead. Exactly a year later, when Tony Stark discovers the lurking danger in the Prometheus, the Mandarin sends his team of supervillains to stop Tony and Iron Man. But with the help of the robot Irving, Iron Man flies to the sunken submarine to confront the threat. When the Mandarin's team ambushes and captures Iron Man. His team of superheroes, including Spider-Woman, War Machine, and Century, rush to the ocean to rescue him. They manage to free Iron Man from both Backlash's whip and the Mandarin's alien dragon, Fin Fang Foom. Julia Carpenter, Earth-616. If Jessica had a main reality, you surely didn't think they'd miss out on Julia for the same. But her story here is far more sad and unfortunate. So, the Prime Earth Julia Carpenter was born as Julia Cornwall, who grew up in Los Angeles, California, with her parents Walter and Elizabeth Cornwall. After she met a college sweetheart, Larry Carpenter, the two got married and eventually had a daughter named Rachel. Unfortunately, after Larry landed a job in public relations, he began cheating on Julia. After 5 years of marriage, they divorced. Julia was awarded custody of their daughter. But after the divorce, Julia Carpenter became a struggling single mother trying to make ends meet. This is when her college friend Valerie Cooper reached out to her and offered Julia a chance to earn some extra money by participating in government-sponsored exercise studies. Now, Julia had no idea that Valerie was part of a secret program to create superhuman soldiers, and during the studies, Julia was injected with a mixture of spider venoms and plant toxins under the guise of a vitamin injection. These substances mutated Julia, giving her spider-like psionic powers. Later on, Valerie convinced her to become a government agent, taking on the mantle of the new Spider-Woman. Now, Spider-Woman had barely started her superhero training when she was pulled into the Secret Wars, teaming up with Spider-Man and the Avengers. But after she died in battle, Julia was resurrected by Dr. Doom, who wielded the power of the Beyonder. After returning to Earth, she was drafted into the Freedom Force, which was a government superhero team that was composed of former members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. During an early mission, Freedom Force was sent to capture the X-Men, where Julia encountered Jessica Drew, the now powerless original Spider-Woman, and this encounter made Julia start to question her decision to work alongside known criminals. When Freedom Force was sent to arrest the Avengers, Julia actually helped defeat them, including the West Coast team. After realizing her mistakes, she freed the Avengers from jail and teamed up with Spider-Man as a known fugitive. After her name was cleared, Julia joined the West Coast Avengers, and when they disbanded, she became part of Iron Man's new super team, Forceworks. Sadly, Julia's powers were eventually stolen by Charlotte Witter, prompting her to retire and focus on being a better mother to her daughter, Rachel. Eventually, Julia underwent special treatments to regain her powers and rejoin the Avengers under the new identity of Arachne. Alongside her new boyfriend, the Shroud, they covertly opposed the Superhuman Registration Act, aiming to protect other heroes. When her activities were exposed, Julia clashed with Ms. Marvel, who arrested her while she was trying to return back to her daughter. Eventually, Arachne found herself embroiled in a conflict between various spider heroes and the Kravinoff family. She played a crucial role in helping Spider-Man's escape from Anna and Aloysia Kravinoff. During these events, the Chameleon, disguised as Ezekiel, revealed the ongoing war between the Spider and Hunter tribes. Later, Arachne, along with Aranya and Madame Web, was captured by the Kravinoffs. Tragically, Madame Web was mortally wounded in the ordeal, and before passing away, she transferred her psychic abilities to Julia, transforming her into the new Madame Web. After taking on the mantle of Madame Web, Julia intervened when Spider-Man was on the brink of killing Kraven and convinced him that succumbing to violence would lead him down a dark path. Julia Carpenter, Earth-9939. As Earth-9939 Spider-Woman, Julia Carpenter was a member of the Avengers who wield both her spider powers and Black Widow string blaster gauntlets. She played a significant role among the Avengers who witnessed the arrival of Monica Rappaccini and her team in this world's post-apocalyptic wasteland of 2020. Unfortunately, Julia's fate took a grim turn when she presumably met her end at the hands of Charnel or his forces. She was notably absent among the Avengers who attempted to use time travel to prevent Charnel's rise to power, indicating that she'd likely died earlier in their struggles. Mattie Franklin, Earth-616. Apart from Julia and Jessica, we also have Mattie Franklin as another woman known to do a pretty banger job as Spider-Woman. In her debut in Spectacular Spider-Man issue number 262, Mattie Franklin was a young girl who had accidentally overheard her father, Jerry, planning to participate in a mysterious ritual called the Gathering of Five. This ritual was organized by Norman Osborn and promised mystical powers to its participants. In a twist of fate, Mattie took her father's place in the ritual and unexpectedly gained superhuman strength, agility, light telepathy, telekinesis, and the ability to fly. After being inspired by her hero Peter Parker, Mattie decided to follow in his footsteps when he'd retired from being Spider-Man. She adopted a costume similar to his iconic suit and temporarily assumed the role of Spider-Man to carry on his legacy. But when Peter resumed his role as Spider-Man, Mattie transitioned to the Spider-Woman identity and continued her journey as a superhero. In a clash with Charlotte Witter, a villain who also went by Spider-Woman, Mattie temporarily lost her powers. However, upon regaining them, she acquired not only her own abilities, but also those of Witter, along with powers from the previous previous Spider-Women and Madame Web. Ironically, her studies in heroism were supported by J. Jonah Jameson, whose wife at the time happened to be Mattie's aunt. After struggling with her relationship with her father, Mattie eventually moved in with her Aunt Marla. One of Mattie's memorable moments occurred after she disappears in Alias and crosses paths with Jessica Jones, who discovers that she'd been drugged and kidnapped by someone she dated. This person was using Mattie's genetic material to produce mutant growth hormone, a drug that temporarily enhances abilities. Shockingly, Mattie was also exploited as part of this scheme. Teaming up with Jessica Drew, Jones managed to rescue Mattie and reunite her with Jameson. Afterward, Mattie sought therapy to address her being under the influence of drugs after her traumatic experience. Inspired by Jessica's path, Mattie pursued a career as a private investigator. Despite a promising future as a superhero, Mattie tragically met her end at the hands of Anya Kravinoff in a brutal sacrifice during a ritual that was meant to resurrect Kraven the Hunter. Mary Jane Watson, Earth 12041. Mary Jane Watson of Earth 12041 was quite different from her mainstream counterpart. She wasn't just one of Peter Parker's oldest friends, but also took on the role of Spider-Woman in her universe. Mary Jane had been a close friend of Peter Parker's since they were young kids. They were so close that even at age 5, they once tried to run away together forever, but their plans were stopped by not being allowed to cross the street. By the time they were 12, they attempted to get serious by sharing a kiss, but it didn't quite work out, so they decided to stay friends instead. Despite this, as they've grown older, it was clear that they still have lingering feelings for each other. MJ's biggest aspiration was to become the top reporter at Daily Bugle Communications. However, her life took a dramatic turn when she was exposed to the Carnage virus, and it transformed her into Spider-Woman. With a newfound power similar to Spider-Man and Carnage, Mary Jane navigated her dual life as both a friend and a superhero in this world. Mary Jane Watson, Earth 2301. In this world, Mary Jane Watson becomes a member of the Spider Clan of ninjas after taking on the mantle of Spider-Woman. Trained by her boyfriend Peter Parker, who's also Spider-Man in their universe, Mary Jane went on to become a skilled and experienced fighter after Parker showed her the ropes of the superhero world. As a new member of the Spider Clan, Mary Jane and Peter teamed up with many other heroes to fight off a devastating superhero massacre. They bravely fought alongside the remaining heroes, persevering through tough battles until the very end, but they stood among the last few survivors. Mary Jane Watson, Earth 8545. In the alternate universe named as the Legacy Planet, a deadly virus known as the Legacy Virus had taken the lives of most of Earth's superheroes. The Exiles, a team that travels between realities, arrived on a mission to stabilize this fragile reality and eventually allied with Earth's Resistance, where they encountered Mary Jane Watson. In this reality, Mary Jane took on the role of Spider-Woman, using powers similar to those of Earth-616's Spider-Man. She became a crucial member of the Resistance, alongside another counterpart to Spider-Man who was a six-armed Peter Parker, transformed into one of the Vilocks. On a subsequent mission, two members of the Exiles, Sunfire and Nocturne, unexpectedly returned to the Legacy Planet due to a strange glitch that separated them from their team. This version of Mary Jane Watson was depicted as being gay. During their time together, Sunfire and Mary Jane developed a deep romantic connection, fully aware that their time could be cut short if the Exiles were recalled. Even then, they shared 2 blissful weeks together, cherishing their love amid the chaos of their world. However, just as suddenly as they'd arrived, Sunfire and Nocturne disappeared, leaving Mary Jane heartbroken once more, longing for the brief happiness they'd found together. After Sunfire's passing, Morph arranged for her burial on the Legacy Planet, giving Mary Jane the opportunity to visit her grave and pay her respects. Later on, Mary Jane met her demise at the hands of Morlan, but it's possible that she'd returned back to life after Morlan's defeat by the Totem Dagger, which unleashed the life energies of all the spiders he'd slain. Mary Jane Watson, Earth 92124. In a reality where all the Avengers are women, Mary Jane takes on the mantle of Spider-Woman alongside Miss Fantastic, Phoenix, and Laura Kinney, the Wolverine of this Earth. The Mary Jane Watson of Earth 92124 had all the same powers as Spider-Man, and wore the same costume originally worn by Ben Reilly when he was Spider-Man. In the Incredible Hercules issue 124, we see Hercules, Namora, and Athena race to Washington, D.C. to stop the Madamazan Artum from taking control of the world by shifting the Axis Mundi. But Artum has a powerful advantage with Amadeus Cho and the strongest of the Titans, Atlas, under her command. Plus, Atlas still holds a grudge against Hercules for ripping him off during the 11th labor, which only makes the situation more aggressively intense. Now, the Avengers work for President Artum in this case, and so Spider-Woman helped to capture the Y-Men leader, Hercules. However, she and most of the Avengers, except for White Phoenix, became disillusioned with the president. Eventually, they teamed up with Hercules and Gorgon to confront her. May Parker, Earth 982. So, Mayday Parker was the daughter of Peter and Mary Jane Parker in her reality. She was kidnapped by Alison Mulgrain, who acted on Norman Osborn's orders, but Kane eventually found and reunited her with her parents. During this time, Peter was still Spider-Man, but had recently lost a leg during his final battle with the Green Goblin. Although Reed Richards provided him with a bionic replacement leg, Peter saw this as an opportunity to retire his Spider-Man identity and focus on being a loving father and husband to his daughter and wife. For many years, Peter and Mary Jane hid their past from their daughter, with the hope that she'd not go on to develop any powers like her dad. But to their dismay, May began developing her father's spider powers at 15. Her abilities first appeared when she was playing basketball and shattered the backboard. Around the same time, Normie Osborn, the Green Goblin's grandson, set out to restore his family's name. To stop him, Mayday put on Ben Reilly's Spider-Man costume and began fighting crime. Initially, her worried parents tried to hinder her, but they soon started helping her. Along the way, May faced several superpowered opponents, including the psychopathic Crazy 8, the vengeful Dragon King, and the teleporting hitman, Mr. Nobody. She also had several run-ins with the vigilante Daredevil, who doubted her abilities but helped her anyway. May encountered other vigilantes and criminals too, like the duo Ladyhawks, the misunderstood Buzz, and the thief Raptor, who eventually decided to join the side of good. Together, they became the latest incarnation of the New Warriors. But May eventually retired from being a superhero after a near-fatal encounter with the Hobgoblin, who had come out of retirement himself. Following this, she started dating Eugene Thompson and ran for student council president. But when Mary Jane realized the Hobgoblin was a threat to May's friends, she allowed May to become Spider-Girl again, while keeping it a secret from Peter. After another battle with the Hobgoblin, May confessed everything to her father, and following a heartfelt conversation with Mary Jane, they both agreed to let May continue her role as Spider-Girl. It was after the events of the Spider-Verse when May decided to wear her late father's costume and adopt the name Spider-Woman. However, she soon realized that wearing her father's costume was making it hard for her to move on from his death. So, she created a new costume that combined elements of her Spider-Girl outfit and the classic Spider-Man suit. This change symbolized her decision to look toward the future with hope. Since then, her adventures haven't stopped. Polymnia Swan, Earth-98117. Polymnia Polly Swan, who's also known as Spider Requiem, was actually a spider totem who used her abilities to fight crime. In addition to having Peter Parker's powers, she could control puppets. Polly was recruited by Miles Morales and Spider-Zero to help rescue Spiderling from the web of life and destiny. So, Spider Requiem began as Spider Sona, which was a fan-created character inspired by the film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Marvel Comics apparently reached out to some fans to create new Spider Sonas for Spider-Verse Volume 3, and Spider Requiem was the first to be introduced in the Spider-Verse's profile backup feature of the first issue of Spider-Verse Volume 3. She ultimately made her in-story debut in the 6th issue of the comic, along with 9 other Spider-Sonas. Cyvern Drew, Earth-2099. Cyvern was an alien who was oppressed in her homeworld, but when she learned about the legacy of Spider-Man, she found inspiration to rebel against tyranny and become a heroine by adopting the mantle of Spider-Woman. Cyvern then joined the New Avengers following the defeat of the Masters of Evil and participated in a celebration on planet Wakanda. Later, along with the New Avengers, Spider-Woman went to confront the Cabal's henchmen during a clash with the X-Men, and together they won the fight rather easily. Afterward, Spider-Woman relocated to New York City, where she received a warm welcome from Miguel O'Hara. Under his guidance, she honed her heroics and began serving as a new vigilante for the city. One night, Cyvern and Lila stumbled upon a break-in and raid at an apartment belonging to former Black Card member Michael Eric. They soon found out that Eric, now bonded with the Carnage symbiote, was on a rampage at the Alchemax Commerce Plaza, attacking innocent people. Although Spider-Man and Spider-Woman rushed to intervene, they had to retreat when Spider-Man sustained severe injuries during the confrontation. Spider-Woman, Earth-12665. In the year 3012 AD, the Spider-Woman of Earth-12665 was a member of the Fantastic Four. When Mr. Fantastic, desperate to learn the fate of his best friend, used a device created with the help of his father, Nathaniel Richards, to peer into the future, their time ship transported them to New York City in 3012. Here, they use a Herbie drone to locate the Thing, and in this future, the Thing was part of a Fantastic Four team led by Franklin Richards. Together with Spider-Woman and Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic watched them thwart a team of Skrulls attempting to raid the Baxter Building. Even a millennium later, the Thing was strong and active, as Reed explains that Ben only ages during one day each year when he reverts to human form, all because of Valeria's formula. Now, Reed is determined to delve deeper into the future and leaves this Fantastic Four behind to travel further into the future. Spider-Woman, Earth-18138. This unnamed Spider-Woman was among the heroes that Cable brought back in time to prevent the bleak future from happening by kidnapping an infant Thanos and assassinating him. However, in a fatal battle, she was killed by Frank Castle, who had taken up the dual role as Ghost Rider and as Galactus' herald. Veranke Earth-616. Veranke was a Skrull princess who belonged to the Dard Van, a a deeply religious sect within Skrull society, whose belief centered on a prophecy predicting the end of the Skrull Empire. When the Illuminati's attempt to intimidate the Skrull Empire failed, Veranke and her sect tried to warn their ruler, Doric VII, about an impending catastrophe which involved a devourer of worlds and a devastating wave. She challenged Doric's leadership, arguing that if he ignored the threat, he was unworthy of his throne. But Doric dismissed her warnings as the ramblings of a zealot, fearing that executing her would martyr her cause. Instead, he chose to exile Veranke to a desolate planet. However, after the Skrull homeworld was destroyed by Galactus, Veranke was brought back from exile. Now, after Veranke became the queen of the Skrulls, she orchestrated a rather complex infiltration of Earth during the secret invasion event by replacing Jessica Drew, who was the original Spider-Woman. Under her leadership, Skrulls infiltrated various superhero teams across the world, posing as key figures and replacing many superheroes to prepare for an ultimate takeover of Earth. This led to perilous situations for many heroes who were either killed or jeopardized. The Wasp and Kate Bishop were amongst the ones who suffered the most because of these disguised invaders. Despite the heroes' efforts to resist the Skrull incursion, Veranke's plans were ultimately thwarted by Wolverine and Hawkeye. On the other hand, Norman Osborn capitalized on this victory over Veranke to seize leadership of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, that was 35 different versions of Spider-Woman to make an impact within the varied realities of the Marvel Universe. While a lot of them share the same name, same powers, and more or less the same origin story, each of them had a different yet unique part to play in their respective world. With that being said, who's your favorite Spider-Woman from this list? Let us know in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.